Hi, everyone. Welcome to my Thursday night Real Estate Investors Hangout. And I am really happy tonight because I have a great guest with me who's going to tell you all about how to flip houses in 6 hours a week or less. So I'm looking forward to hearing all the tips and tricks that he's going to teach us. So let me get started. I'm going to show you just a little bit of an introduction, and then I'm probably going to throw up a poll for the attendees to find out how many houses you've worked on, how many deals you've done, and then we'll get right into the content. So I'm going to introduce Broc just for a minute here, and let me pull up a picture while I do that. It'll be kind of fun. All right, so the first deal Broc and I did together was this house, which was kind of overgrown. We actually met at a local real estate club, and I highly recommend that people go to their local real estate club and meet other investors. And we even were in an auction group that I was running, and I could see that he not only wanted to do it, but he had the drive to do it, whereas most of the other people kind of wanted to, but weren't really putting in the time and effort it meant to actually do it. So Broc was buying a lot of condos and things at the auction. So when we came upon this house deal, we just kind of dug in and said, let's go do this house. So that was kind of the first one. I'll just throw a couple pictures up. It'll bring back memories, right, Broc?
Oh, yeah. That was a long time ago.
A long time ago. Oh, I'm pressing on the wrong spot there. So this is what the house looked like when we found it. It was still in the 60s style. Cabinets, separate oven and a separate cooktop. Really old fireplace. Of course, the paint wasn't on there until we got a hold of the house, but that's what the fireplace looked like. Broc pulled back the carpet and found some cracks in the slab, and I'm going to let him tell you that story. And we even corrected the slab in the garage. The chimney was tilting, so we had to put pylons underneath. We poured a whole new back patio slab. We poured new sidewalks all around the house. So there was a lot going on in that house. This is what the cracks looked like when we were doing the fixing. And you haven't seen Broc yet, but here's Broc teaching people about the budget and how to estimate the budget on your rehab, and talking about the chimney and the pylons in the back. So we used to run these scope of work classes in the house to teach people, new investors, how not to lose money on a rehab. Here's what the property looked like when we were in the middle of the rehab, after we kind of cleared out the whole front yard. And after all the great handiwork, here's a bathroom and, the outside front of the house. I think that might be the last one. Oh, inside. The fireplace, much better looking. The kitchen, much better looking. So that's the kind of quality work you want to do to get a rehab started. And I'll put a stop on that one and bring Broc on. And then Broc, I know we talked earlier about the price of that house when we bought it, and I sort of dug up, the old documents and even found a little slideshow we had done. So I'll show you those numbers in a sec, but they're a lot better than we remember.
Oh, really?
It's great to remember the stories, but it's kind of hard to remember the numbers after you do so many. So let me just I'll do another screen share, and I'll just show you the numbers, and then you can talk about how we actually got this deal going, because that part of it was a great story.
Okay.
Let's see, let me grab this one. I'll do this one. Start that. And let's see. Yeah, so Broc, you can still see, right?
I can see.
Can you see the deal summary? So those are the numbers on this house.
Nice.
And we bought it for $210. And originally we had a contract for quite a bit higher, maybe $235, $240. But Broc will tell you why we were able to bring that price down. And that was our sale price. So we had a really nice, exit on this particular property. And kind of there's what we paid on the concrete. We were talking about that, and just to bring up some numbers. So kind of a before and after. That's what we did to that house. So I'll stop the screen share and then bring Broc on. It's kind of a long introduction, but I'm really happy to have him with me tonight and on the show so we can share it with you. He's a real estate investor in San Diego, rehabbed a lot of houses, and very, very efficient at his business. So he's going to share with you how he takes the busy out of his business and hires other people to help him. So he has a lot more time to relax and do the things he wants to do. So Here we go. Ready, Broc?
I'm ready, Janice.
All right.
Yeah, I remember that project. I remember it very well. So what happened with that project was Janice called me one day, and we had become friends at our real estate investing club, and we had talked, and we hadn't done any business yet. So Janice called me, and she let me know, hey, Broc, I have this deal. Someone, I think it was from church, referred you the person and said, hey, Janice, they want to sell this house. And the story with it was the mother had lived in the house, and the whole family lived in Arkansas, I believe it was. And so the mother had moved back to Arkansas, and nobody lived in the house anymore. And the sons were having to deal with selling the house. So Janice got a hold of them and talked to them and set it up so that way we could go take a look at the property. We went over, took a look at the property, and then we sat down together, and I believe we made 2 offers on that one. I believe we made one, I think it was $230, and that was a cash offer. And I think our other one was like $240, and that was if they financed the property for us. So if they took payments for it, then we would give them a little bit more money. So they ended up taking the cash offer because they just wanted to run with the money, go back to Arkansas, and get back to living their life. They didn't want to deal with the going back and forth. And Janice, I think that's a key, because I think a lot of people see this as, oh, well, are you taking advantage of someone? No, we actually sat there and we told the owner, hey, if you sell this house with a real estate agent, you're going to get more money. I remember having that conversation with him very clearly and letting him know, hey, you could do this and you'll probably make, 10, 20, maybe more, $1,000. And so,
but you'll have to fix it.
Yeah. Well, no, even if he had sold it in its present condition, he probably could have gotten a little bit more on the MLS.
Right.
And he just didn't want to deal with it. He didn't want to deal with it. He lived in Arkansas. So he said, no, we want the cash and we want to get done with it.
Right.
So, but on it, now I remember, it actually took a while, didn't it, Janice? We had to write that guy an offer. Yeah. And we presented the offers. He didn't say yes right away.
Well, he was in Arkansas, and then he had a brother here who was using the garage for storage.
Okay.
So when it was a contractor, the whole garage was full of stuff, wood and everything. Yeah. And so the other agreement he made with us is, if my brother doesn't get the stuff out, it's your problem, not mine. Because he didn't want to, he wanted to go fishing with his brother and not have conflicts with him. So he wanted us to take that conflict on for him if it happened. So we were solving his problems, really.
Exactly. We were taking care of his problems, and in return, we definitely made some good money on the project.
Right.
So
what about tell him about, we got a contract and then we found the crack slab.
Oh yeah. So after we got the contract, we did a lot more, due diligence. We went in and really kind of inspected the property a lot more. And there was an area that the floor felt like it was kind of sloping a little bit. So we pulled back that carpet, and we noticed, hey, there's some cracks in this slab. And what we did from there was we got our contractors out there to take a look at it, see what it would cost to repair the cracked slab. And there was a chimney right where the cracked slab was. And they actually wanted to reinforce the foundation of that chimney. So we got some bids. Then the owner, or the son of the owner, came out, and he sat down with us at Denny's, it was, after he had already accepted our offer. And we sat down and showed him the bids, and we said, hey, there's a cracked slab. We need to get some more money off, and so we can make this profitable. And he gave us, I believe it was $20,000 off right then and there in Denny's.
Yeah, 20 or 25, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
He even asked us, well, what do you want? And we were like, what do you want me to take off? So we had to throw a number out.
Yeah. Yeah, so he took that number off, 20 or 25,000 right there on the spot.
Yeah.
And I remember Janice and I walked out of there and we said, wow, he wanted to sell the property. That was an amazing lunch at Denny's because we just made $20,000 or $25,000
at Denny's. Yeah.
At Denny's, exactly, over a $10 meal.
Right. Not counting all the due diligence we did beforehand, but if you look at those moments, we made the money right then. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we fixed up that property. Janice just showed everyone the numbers. You can see that Janice and I, we split a pretty good amount of money. It was like $58,000 after everything. So that was a great payday. And it was beautiful. And
it was beautiful when we were done. It was good.
Oh yeah. Nicest house on the block when we finished, which is typical when we're doing what we do.
Well, I really like that story. I know you have probably 1,000 more stories on all these houses, but now I'm going to start grilling you.
Okay.
So here we go.
What do you want to know?
All right. Well, you gave us an intro of, just one property, but sort of what I want to know is what gives you the right to tell us about flipping? In other words, tell us why we should listen to you.
Okay.
Tell everyone that.
Well, Janice, and that's why I'm here, but everyone else doesn't. So I started my business about 6 years ago. And when I first started out, I had no money. I was broke. I was literally unemployed, living on unemployment and renting a bedroom.
Right.
I got this business started, and within a few years, I built the business to where I was doing 24, 25 homes at a time, while I only had to work 6 hours a week or even less, which is a pretty amazing feat. Because I've seen a lot of flippers, and once you start doing, numbers of houses, usually it turns into, oh my, I'm working 80, 90 hours a week. I'm making really good money, but I work too much.
And you still have your hair. They're losing it. They're losing their hair.
Yeah.
All those houses, they're like tearing their hair out. I can't do it.
Yeah. So that's kind of my specialty. And it wasn't in the beginning. I knew I wanted to build a real business out of it. And it took me some time and trial and error. But once I got it figured out, it was pretty neat to see that we had this business now that I would go in on Wednesday and I would meet with all my managers, check in with them for a half hour each. And that was pretty much all the work I had to do. Maybe I would get a few phone calls, but that was it. Within a few hours on every Wednesday, I would get 90% of my work done. And this was while doing 24, 25 projects at a time.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. That is a great result. So what do you think why is your mindset different than other people's mindsets who do flipping?
Well, one of the big keys I know a lot of flippers, and one of the keys I think for me was I really looked at it like a business, as opposed to, I meet a lot of people and they're like, oh yeah, I bought a house and I flipped a house. And then they're like, oh, and I found another deal and I flipped another house. But we're never looking at it long-term and how to really set it up so that way it would become more and more like a real business. And when I mean real business, I'm talking about like when you walk into a McDonald's, everything is the same. No matter what McDonald's you go to in the United States, they all have the same stuff on the menu. They usually have all the same paint on the walls. Their setups are almost always identical or very close. Right. Basically, everything's the same. And what those are called systems, which I'm sure almost all of you know enough about. So really, I wanted to look at my business and see, how do I set up systems like that so that way I don't have to be everywhere managing everything. And so that was one of the keys. I really started to look at it, and everything from writing offers. I had a written system for how each type of offer was written, because there were, I don't know, 3 or 4 different offer forms. We had short sale forms, bank-owned forms. We had traditional sales. We had trust sales. So those were kind of the 4 main ones that I would deal with. And so I had a special system for each contract.
Okay.
Yeah. And I had the contracts filled out like we were talking about earlier, Janice. You know, all my contracts were pre-filled in with everything except like the details that I wanted to change. So obviously the address of the house would change, the price would change, and maybe a few other items, but everything else was already filled out. So when I wanted to make an offer, it only took about 10 minutes, if that.
Awesome. Awesome. And then it just went right into the owner or the agent that we were dealing with.
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's an example of like one of the systems that like made the buying process simple.
Right.
And I tried to implement that throughout my entire business. I mean, I had checklists, and I still have checklists that I use every time I buy a property. So if I buy a property, I literally go down the checklist and make sure everything's done.
Right.
And some of those little items save me thousands. One of my first few deals I bought, I didn't buy what's called a title insurance binder, which means if I buy a property today and I sell it within a year, I don't have to pay title insurance on the whole amount. I just pay it on the extra that I sold it for. So I didn't buy it on one of my first properties because I just forgot. And luckily I was able to work it out with a title insurance company because I had done business with them and they gave me a discounted rate. But that could have cost me over $1,000 right there.
Yeah.
So that's when I realized just this checklist could save me, you know, hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on every deal.
Absolutely. Good point. Good point. So let me ask you, what types of remodels and projects do you focus on? Do you have a special amount of work you like to do? Of course, everyone would like an easy one, but if you have a special area that you like to focus in or size of remodel, fill us in.
I wouldn't say necessarily there's like a specific, but for me, I do like doing not the super high-end product. So the very expensive homes, I try to stay away from those because that's more for a safety standpoint. I could rent out the lower priced homes very easily, where the higher, you know, million plus homes, they just don't rent out that well.
Yeah, they don't cover the cost.
Exactly. They don't pay the mortgage. They don't make any money. So on my rehabs though, typically I was doing anywhere from like $40,000 to $60,000 in rehab. And that's here in San Diego because obviously our product is a little bit higher. So our baseline products are about $400,000, $500,000 houses.
Yeah. Right now.
Yeah. We're talking granite countertops and travertine floors. That's kind of the standard out here. Obviously in other areas, $40,000 or $60,000 would be an awful lot of money to spend on a house that was only worth $150,000, which
right.
Like you're doing.
I've done in different cities where sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 15. It just depends on what the house is worth. Really, it's a percentage of what the house is worth, what you buy it for, right?
Yeah, definitely. It has to make sense.
Yeah, so you spend about 40 to 60,000 on most of the ones here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we touched a little bit on the fact that we're both in San Diego. What's one key to investing in a competitive market like San Diego?
So one of the keys to doing business in a competitive market is finding deals that are not on the MLS, which is marketing, putting out bandit signs, referrals, those types of deals. Even talking to agents and letting them know and becoming their friend so they tell you before something actually goes on the MLS. So those types of deals, just like the deal we did on Carriage Road in Poway that we showed everyone, that deal was a word of mouth deal and it turned out to be a great deal. I mean, $58,000, that's a huge profit. So that's kind of the key in a competitive market. Like San Diego right now, to buy a house, you have a 15% margin, which really isn't much. But if you go out and market for your own deals, you can get that above 20%. So you can actually make some decent money.
Yeah, and you make the case to the owner that they're saving on the realtor commission. They're not paying that when they sell it. And so there's, it's not really changing the amount of money they're going to net out of it. It's just that the profit from all those fees ends up going to you instead of someone else.
Definitely. Yeah, because it costs about 8% to 10% to sell a house. So we can automatically take that money off, and it didn't hurt the seller or take away anything that they were going to get. And we can also usually do a deal much faster than traditionally because we can close in, 7 days or less.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, tell us, so how do you estimate your costs or calculate out your budget? I know on the ones we did, you came up with a really good estimate of the budget. And I think having that, laid out on a spreadsheet was really helpful. So tell us a little bit about how you do that.
Okay. Well, when I first look at a house, after how many I've done, I can pretty much throw a guess number at it. But then once I get it under contract, I really go in and take a look at it. And I don't do this anymore, but my project manager will have all our subcontractors come out and give us bids on the properties. So that's kind of the key to figuring it out. You don't have to figure it out yourself. That's the best part. Contractors, I mean, they want to give you estimates. So before we had all of our subcontractors that we really liked and we were just figuring it out, we would call out 10, 20 subcontractors. And like my project manager was telling you, Janice, he'd call out 20, maybe even 30, and only like 5 or 10 would show up.
Right.
So
right.
He would schedule them all for the same exact time and just have everybody come at the same time. And here's the trick to making that work. If you're going to do that, which saves you a lot of time, you need to write out exactly what work you want done. So what work do you want done by the cabinet guy? And what work do you want done by the painter? You're basically writing out a scope of work for each category. So that way, if 5 painters come at the same time, you hand them a copy of it and they go bid the house, and maybe they have 1 or 2 questions for you instead of having to walk them all through the house and show them every little piece that you want done. So that's a trick to really getting that down pat and really minimizing your time bidding out a project, because it could take a lot. I mean, it would take you a day for every trade if you walked every single person through the house.
Right.
So that trick right there is get everyone there at the same time. Let them all walk through with the scope of work that you've written out. Don't have them write out their own, because otherwise you'll get 5 bids and they'll all be completely different. They won't be doing the same work, so they're not comparable. When you're looking at a bid, then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, how can this guy be double? Well, one guy is missing some stuff and one guy put on more stuff than you actually want to do to the house. So your own scope of work is really key for figuring out rehab costs.
And I like how you do that. You have those guys do the work. I mean, some people use a percentage or sort of a square footage way to calculate it. And you've never had to worry about that. I guess you can get a broad estimate by square footage, but you have the trades guys do their own.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of my initial. I had kind of a square footage estimate based on our stuff. A 1,200 square foot house, I would put in 40,000 as my guess. But then when we walk through the house with our subcontractors, that may change.
Right.
So yeah, it just depends. Yeah, the square footage method is just for guesstimating. It's not precision. Definitely don't buy a house based on that method.
You could lose money. Yeah.
You could lose a lot of money. Definitely.
Well, tell us, I think you handed it to me beforehand and I have a page ready, but tell us a little bit about, you do have a spreadsheet that you use when you make your order. So you try to order as much stuff all at once and have it delivered. How do you do that?
Definitely. So with some of the lower cost contractors out there, they're going to want a lot of the materials bought for them, so that they don't have to come out of pocket. And that's a fair trade because they're usually giving you a discount for that. So what we have is a spreadsheet that has all the materials that we use. I actually have 2, one for what I'd call an A house, which would be a nicer house, and one for a B house, which would be more of a basic house. So we have 2 spreadsheets, and we can literally go through the house and just put in, okay, I need 4 sink faucets, I need 2 toilets, and so on and so on. And then the spreadsheet, which at the end of this, we're going to give it to all of you for free. So it'll calculate for you. Okay, then all of a sudden 4 toilets would be, or 2 toilets, that would be $198. And that'll calculate it all for you right there up front. So it's a pretty neat way to do it. Now on the spreadsheet, to be really exact, we have where it's from. So most of our stuff is from Home Depot, but sometimes there are specialty products that we have to get from other places. So we put on there the supplier. I also put on the SKU number. So the SKU number is that store number that they use. And then I'll put in the price. And then there's additional column for how many you want, and then another column that will have the calculation of how much that costs.
Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of one of the tools we use for helping to figure out material costs. And it's very effective. And
so you use similar things in each house. So if I walked into a house, I could say, hey, this is a Broc Kelly house because of the color and the sink, and right? I could figure it out.
There are areas of San Diego now that people walk through and they know that it's my house. The realtors usually, not the homeowners or the buyers. Right. But the realtors, they see them over and over and they can figure them out very quickly. Hey, I know who did this house.
Exactly.
Because they use the same granite, the same cabinets, the same flooring.
Right.
Everything is identical, just like the McDonald's example. Everything is the same because it helps with efficiency. All of your subcontractors already know what's going to happen. They already know what's going in. Your project managers don't have to tell them over and over again. It really saves a ton of time all around, and money.
Right. So it saves a lot of management time. So I'm going to put that, the link, because I didn't do that right. I'm going to put this link here in the chat box. So it's wisewealthuniversity.com and then /Broc Kelly, and it's BROCKELLY, all one word run together. So if you go to that page, wisewealthuniversity.com /Broc Kelly, there's a number of resources there, and we'll get to the other ones as we go through here. But the first one is the spreadsheet that Broc just talked about, and then he'll give some other recommendations later. And I threw up a couple pictures of you on that page too. So
nice. I hope they were good.
They're good. They're like talking about the chimney or the budget, or the ones we just saw, just so people remember. Oh, it's that guy. Yeah, Broc Kelly. Okay. All right. So that's your rehab. That's how you estimate it. And thanks for sharing that spreadsheet. That's really sweet.
Definitely.
So once you know your costs to rehab a house, why would anyone wholesale a property if they were just going to make money on it? What would you do? Why would you do that?
Okay, here's why you would wholesale a property. I personally made the mistake when I first started out of not wholesaling any properties. And I know for a fact that has cost me at least $500,000 in wholesale fees.
Whoa.
Because, oh yeah, easily, if not more. Because there were so many deals that I would have under contract or that I just wouldn't look at because, oh, I'm busy. I don't have another investor set up. I don't have another loan set up.
Or
my crew can't handle that. So if I didn't have all the next keys set up, I wouldn't even do the deal or even try to do the deal. But with wholesaling, you don't need any of that. You just go out, you get all the properties you want under contract, and then you sell them to another investor without having to buy the property. So what wholesaling is once you have an offer, a signed offer, that's a contract. And then you take that contract and you sell the rights to that contract over to another investor. So they come in and they'll buy it from you. And a normal wholesale fee could be anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000. So there was a lot of those deals that I never did. And I should have. I let a ton of deals go. So the reason you'd wholesale a property is because you're just maybe not ready to do more deals. Maybe you already have, 3, 4, 5, 10, and you don't want to do any more at that time, or you don't have all the resources, or your business isn't set up. yet to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd wholesale. Not to mention, there's very low risk in a wholesale deal. The only money that you ever risk is a deposit, which is usually small. So there's very low money at risk, and it doesn't take a lot of management. You find a buyer, you sell them the contract, and once it closes escrow, it's done. You never have to deal with it again. You get a check. So that's why you would wholesale properties.
Okay, so that's probably your one regret from all the rehabbing you did, right?
That is a huge regret, because I just know that one simple key would have made me so much more money. And it's okay, but for everyone out there, if you're just starting or you're just getting into it, please get those deals under contract. Build a network of people that want to buy houses like you to fix up. And every time you get one that you can't do, just let everyone on your list know, and then sell it and make an easy check. It may not be as big as a rehab check, but it's better than no check at all.
Yeah, and you didn't have to do all the rehab work and find a buyer and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, you don't. It's very simple. It's a simple system, and it's a very simple way to do deals and make money with very little money up front.
Excellent, excellent. That's a great tip for our listeners. So thank you for that. I know you started to touch on it earlier, but tell us a little bit more about how you kind of hire your subs and pick out who you're going to hire, initially before you knew who your really good crew was. How did you filter through all those people?
Well, how I did it was a lot of trial and error. How I suggest you do it is there's two different items right there. How I did it and how I suggest you do it now after knowing and doing it so many times.
Right.
Like Janice was saying, you really want to get involved in your real estate investing group that is close to you. Here in San Diego, we have a couple, so I am a member of both of them. I go to those, and getting a referral is the best way to get a good subcontractor. So let's say that your club is not as big as you'd like it to be, or maybe the club's a little far away for you to get to. There's a lot of online clubs that are based on areas, even on Facebook and things like that. And you can just go on there, and that would be the best way to do it, really, is once you connect with everyone on Facebook in your area, you just put a post up and say, hey, I need a painting contractor in this area. Does anyone have referrals? That is the best way to get good contractors, because the trial and error method doesn't always go over so well. Sometimes you have to fire guys in the middle of a job, and sometimes you have them do the whole job, and then you realize they didn't do that good of a job, and you bring in someone else to fix their mistakes. That's how I suggest, as far as hiring, that's the number one thing. If you can get a referral or a few referrals, get them out, have them give you bids, and really see how responsive they are. Getting a time frame out of them. So, hey, how long is this project going to take you? And if 3 people say it's going to take a week, and one guy says he's going to get it done in 2 days, most likely you want to ask the guy, okay, how many people are you bringing to do the job? And then ask the other people that said a week, how many people are you bringing to do the job? If the guy that said 2 days is bringing the same number of people as the people who said a week, he's probably full of it. And I don't like to hire people who give me bogus answers, because when you're scheduling and when you're managing, that's just the worst thing in the world. One guy tells you 2 days, so you set up the next guy for 3 days. Well, all of a sudden it takes them a week, and now everybody's messed up and they're all mad at you. So,
that's it.
I really,
that's interesting.
I say referral first. If you can't get a referral, really look into them. Check for a contractor's license. I know in California you can just do it right online. You can find out if they have a contractor's license, if they have any complaints against them, and things like that. So that's one good quick reference for that. If they have references of people they've done jobs for, that is a good thing as well. And just look at how detailed they are. Someone who writes out a bid on a yellow notepad like this is probably not the best guy to hire, because especially if it's a big task.
And they just put one big number.
Yeah.
$6,000. I love those bids, you know. I hate those bids. It's a joke.
Don't get me wrong. I've hired guys who do that, and some of them are okay. But I would say for the most part, they're not that organized, and that doesn't help you build your business. So try to stay away from those. Really look at, you know, how detailed were they in their bids. If they listed it out very precisely and they had different amounts for different portions of the job, that's a professional looking bid, and that just tells me that they know a little bit more about what they're doing and they're more organized. So that's kind of a key indicator as well. That's a simple one that anyone can look at.
Did you ever, you know, I've heard this trick from other people, especially if you're in a new city, but did you ever go to Home Depot and they say, find the guys that are there between 7 and 8 in the morning, because those are the go-getters, and also ask the pro desk for referrals? Did you find anyone that way?
I have found a few people that way, and that is actually a great way to do it, Janice. By the time I had my team set up, I didn't have to go do that anymore, but I have done it a few times, and it works really well, because those guys at the pro desk, they're selling materials to people all the time, and they're only selling to people who are buying thousands of dollars in materials. So they know the people who are actually doing business. And if someone's doing that much business, they're probably pretty decent at what they do. Otherwise, they wouldn't have so much business. So that's a great way. And I love the one just being there early in the morning, because obviously the guy that stumbles in at 11 a.m. to go pick up material to get to his first job is not the guy you want. You want the guy that showed up at 6:30 or 7 a.m. because he's got to get to his job. So that's a great idea.
The other one I've heard is you also don't want to get the guys that are there at 2, because they're coming back to get materials that they forgot, so they're not organized. So don't go for those guys.
That could be true as well. I've been guilty of that, so I don't know.
Every once in a while you have to go back and get things, but if it's a recurring process, it just eats into the time, you know.
Definitely.
What about Craigslist? Did you get some guys from there? I know I remember we hired some from there, but there's more screening, of course. Probably. Definitely.
There's a lot more screening with that type of contractor, because you're not getting a referral. See, where the other options, you're pretty much getting a good referral from the pro desk or from a friend, or seeing someone who's actually in the trade there buying materials. So if you're pulling people off Craigslist, which I say is a great way to do it, just be very careful, do your due diligence, look into them. Like I talked about, look them up, look at their bid, see how quickly they respond, see how, you know, really the key to figuring it out, which I kind of touched on, is comparing multiple contractors to each other. Because you're going to start to see a theme, you know? You're going to see the theme of, okay, this is around a $3,000 or $4,000 job. So if this guy wants 10 or this guy only wants 1,500, and everyone else is at 3 or 4, I want to know why. What's the difference? Okay. So that's key. And then timing, you know, how long it's going to take them. If everyone else says a week and he says 2 days, there's something off there, and I want to know why. So those are kind of keys. The more bids you get and the more contractors that you talk to, they will tell you things that you'll be able to use to ask other contractors questions to figure out if they know what they're doing.
Yeah. That's a good point.
You're basically interviewing contractors, and if you do a few of them about the same job, one's going to tell you one thing, one's going to tell you another, and you ask each one this other question to see what they have to say about it. And now you're kind of getting all the angles from all the contractors and seeing who knows what they're talking about.
No, that's a good point. I remember when we did the carriage one, you had issues with the concrete guy because he just wasn't on the schedule. He was on his own schedule, but he wasn't on the schedule we needed him to be on.
Oh yeah. And that can be pretty typical in the construction industry, because things are very fluid in that industry, and they change. All of a sudden one of his other jobs takes a little longer, and he doesn't show up to your job for a few more days, and that can mess your whole thing up. So
Right, right. Or someone calls him to come do sort of a more important job or something he's going to get paid more for, and pretty soon
Yep.
the guy disappears.
Uh,
So, well, I
those are
like
the
what,
worst.
yeah, yeah. I liked what you said about the materials, because that's another thing I think investors get mixed up on is if they have the contractor get the materials, they don't realize the contractor's marking up the materials because you can still have them go pick it up, but it's just better if you pay for it and they don't have to lay out the money. Right.
Yeah, that can help. After you develop a relationship, if you can get the same type of pricing and they're paying for the materials, that's obviously better and simpler for you. But that'll take a little bit to get that good pricing and have them go pick up the materials. So initially, I would have them give me a bid, and I would have them say, okay, and my bid's $4,000 with materials, but you pay for the materials and take it off my $4,000 bid. And that's the best way to do it.
Okay.
So that way, if all of a sudden, he thought his materials were $1,500 and they turn out to be $1,800, you're not paying the extra $300. He is. So that really keeps them on budget. You tell them, hey, you give me a bid, I'll pay for your materials up front, but it comes out of your total bid. And that's one of the best ways to do it with contractors or subcontractors like that.
So they don't underestimate the materials, and then all of a sudden you're paying more for the materials.
Exactly. If someone comes in and they say, oh, I can do it for, $2,000 and $1,500 in materials. So $2,000 for labor, $1,500 for materials. And all of a sudden $1,500 turns into $2,500. That's a big surprise. And all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, that just cost me an extra $1,000. So having them stick to their number is very helpful. And that's a great way to do it right there.
Yeah. And I think the reputable ones will stick to their number, and the ones that aren't, that's just a way they do business. So you don't really want to work with them.
Exactly.
Anyway.
You don't.
So, well, that's a good strategy. Any other strategies on how do you keep your costs down?
How do I keep my costs down?
Or, discounts from a warehouse, or, anything you can think of.
Definitely. So some of the things were setting up, like with certain suppliers. Home Depot, after we bought enough material, we got set up on a special account where we always got a discount no matter how much we bought.
Oh, good.
That's you have to start doing some serious volume to get that. But one of the easy ways in the beginning are finding good suppliers. Like our cabinets, almost all of our cabinets were real wood cabinets, but they were from China. They were Chinese box cabinets.
Right.
Well, at first I was hiring a contractor who would, he would pay for his box cabinets and he would come install them and everything. And then I got in touch with some suppliers on those same cabinets, and I was able to get a really good price on them because they knew I was going to be doing multiple homes. So I could get a way better price all of a sudden. And then I just paid a cabinet installer just to come install the cabinets. And that saved me a lot of money. Windows was another big one. You can really, there's a big markup in Windows as well.
Yeah.
So Windows, I got amazing discounts through a window company by negotiating with them and setting that account up. So then I would buy the windows and have a subcontractor just install them. And we're talking probably a 40% discount compared to like Home Depot windows. That was the difference, the window difference. So that's another great one. If you can really work some relationships with some good suppliers, you can get some really good deals on stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it'll save a lot.
Yeah. I remember the windows that we put in on our deals were a lot cheaper than, the ones the retail price you see. And I remember writing a check or something for one of them, and they were driving all the way to LA to pick up some of the windows because it was a big warehouse, I guess.
Yeah. A lot of the windows were coming out of LA originally then. Yeah. Later on, I found a great San Diego supplier, but it's really about finding a good supplier. And on a big item, on those types of things, we were spending thousands of dollars on every house, cabinets and windows.
Yeah.
So by negotiating better deals with the supplier, that adds up to a lot of money.
Yeah, so it's all about these strategies. I mean, you can look at a house and, decide this is how much this is going to cost you to do it. And someone else can look at it. It's going to cost them a totally different amount of money to rehab that house because you controlled your costs. So you might be able to do a house that someone else isn't going to touch.
Yes.
And that's one of the tricks that people don't understand about the business.
Definitely. Yeah. As you get better and better at this, your costs go down and your profit goes up, and the deals that you can do, they grow. That's definitely true.
Right. Okay. When you are estimating your budget, what amount do you put sort of in miscellaneous, like the oops factor, like something I hadn't thought about? So you have to have something in your budget for that oops factor to make sure that you are still going to get a profit when you're done, right?
Yeah. I mean, it really depends on the amount of work. For the lighter cosmetic types, you could be, 10% or even less of your rehab estimate.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the bigger projects, though, if you're really tearing open walls and going through permits and long drawn out processes, you need to have a lot larger oops factor, because not only do you have, oh, dang, that cost an extra $3,000, but then, oh, that took an extra month.
Time.
So I had to pay interest for that month, which could be thousands more. So on a longer project, on your oops budget, you probably want to have over 10%, maybe 15, depending on how much experience you have and knowledge, and then how much you really know about that project, how much due diligence you've truly done on it, and how much are you doing that you can't see, because that's the thing. You start opening a bunch of walls and you don't know what's back there.
Right. Yeah, so that's good to know, so that people know if they're doing, say, 40,000 in rehab, they would just come up with, say, 4,000 or 5,000 in their miscellaneous budget. But if you're like we're doing one up in Sacramento now, and we're it's just back to the studs, so the whole thing's open. So there's a lot of things that happen. There's a lot of things where the permit, the city guy comes out and says, oh, you need another permit for this, or this is going to take longer. So I like that. You have to estimate in the 15%. And then if you don't have to use all that, that's just profit for you. Yeah. But you better allow for it, because if you don't allow for it, you're going to do a lot of work and you may not make any money at the end. That's just bad.
Yeah. And after doing this long and this many properties, I can tell you, most of them go over by something. Very few of them come in cheaper than you expect. So
I don't remember any that come in under budget.
It's rare. It's rare.
I mean, we had one in November, a tree fell on it. Then we had to repair the roof. No. And then it was big. By the time we did that, then Christmas hit. So then we couldn't sell it. And just, it just kind of went on from there. So things, even the weather can change it. It was, I guess, a big rainstorm and just knocked branches and the whole tree fell over. So,
man.
Yeah. We didn't make as much, but we still made money. That's the thing.
That's the key. That'll keep you in the game.
Exactly.
Making money on every deal or breaking even will keep you in the game.
Exactly.
So having that fudge factor is very helpful.
It's very important. Very important. Everybody needs a fudge factor. So, okay. So next question is, let's go more into the business automation. So what strategies do you have that you use specifically that can automate your business, either just in the flipping business or it would apply to business in general? Okay.
So like we talked about, systems, checklists are huge. So everything I do, I have a checklist, so that way my team knows what they're doing. I had, when I first started out, this was one of the first things that I did. I had a system for spray paint. Like in the beginning, we all saw that there was red spray paint on that fireplace in the Carriage Road property in Poway. Red meant demo, okay? And then blue meant plumbing, and yellow meant electrical. I would go through, and then later on, my project managers would go through, and we would lay out everything with, 5, 6 different colors of spray paint, and all our subcontractors and everybody knew what each color meant. So it made a very clear picture of what was supposed to be done. There's nothing worse than telling someone to demo something and then all of a sudden they demo that and something else that you didn't want demoed.
Exactly.
And now you have to spend twice as much putting it back together. So with our spray paint method, it was very simple. That's a great system right there. Literally spray paint on the wall and say, remove drywall only, you know?
Yeah.
So that was a great system. Other systems that I use, obviously, are managers. People are very important. You take your good systems and you combine them with good people, and that will really make everything flow. So I had great project managers. I had great office staff. I have just an amazing team of people who do everything, and they all have systems for themselves so that way they can do it, and they do it the same way every time.
Okay.
Other systems I use virtual assistants, which we've talked about, Janice. It's not
I do too. I do too.
Yeah. But it's a very neat way to have extra staff and to have it very easy or very low cost. And not to mention, you don't have to set up payroll and all of those things for someone who's outside of the country. So I use odesk.com and elance.com. And Janice is going to give all of you a link to that, so that way you'll be able to find that later on. So those are basically websites where people from all over the world can come on and they post their basic resume, what they do, and then you can go on and you can hire them. And all you do is you put in your credit card and you can hire people from all around the world. And my average cost, for someone in another country is probably about $4 to $8 an hour. And that's everything, all taxes and everything included. So it makes it really nice. And I can ask them, hey, this week I need you to work 20 hours and next week I only have 2 hours of work for you. I don't have to keep them busy because they have other people who will hire them to fill in that time.
Right. They're basically on call for, whatever you need to do. So I'll just throw in some of the things I use them for. I have one guy who does my my WordPress website, and not that I can't do it, but I mean, he just goes into the back end and he does the backup, and I say, just update stuff or launch a new website, put it on WordPress, get my, all my plugins going and just do it. And then I just go in and put in the content. Or then now I have a guy who's looking at, I generate a lot of YouTube videos from all of our webinars. And so he's going in and doing the transcript for, all of the Hangouts that I've done so far. And then another person does my QuickBooks, and they're in different countries. I have Philippines, India, Bangladesh, a couple different, places. And if I can't find someone that I like for a particular thing, then I ask one of them, because they sometimes work in a group, and they'll recommend, oh, I know someone who can do that particular thing for you. And like you said, those references are really helpful. And then I have a guy who just does like the basic virtual assistant. I just need him to do online web research, find a list of this for me, or put this in a spreadsheet. Or I have one guy do all my mail merges. We were talking about getting deals that are, off the market. So I do a mailer, and I pull the list, but I have him do the mail merge and put it into Word, and then he just gives me the whole document. Then I print it out here. So, I mean, if I could have him mail them, I would, but he's not going to mail it from India. So there's many, many different ways, guys, that you can use the online assistants, and they just do a piece of the work that you don't want to. And then you can even hand that to someone else to do a different piece of the work. Yeah. So that one person doesn't have to be multi-talented. They all have specific things. I've had some people do accounting for me that only required Excel spreadsheet, and I pay less for that than I do for someone who's going to put it in QuickBooks. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use them. And it's also on the same page that I put up for you at my website /Broc Kelly. Those two links are there. So the Elance and the Odesk. So they can go ahead and do that. Well, tell us a little bit, Brock, about maybe the assistants that you have that are actually on site or local. Kind of, how do you find them, or what kind of work, or are they training with you? Like, how do you compensate them for their work?
Okay, so typically a project manager, I normally pay them either hourly or salary. And how they do it is, obviously they use the system. So the more systems you have in place, the easier it is to get someone who can manage your projects. Right. Because once you have all the systems in place, it doesn't take somebody with as much knowledge to manage. And that was one of the keys. Finding good managers, you need somebody who's personable. You need someone who understands construction, who's been in the trades and knows the lingo. You want someone who's usually somewhat computer savvy, because today, now if I want to see something on a property, I don't want to drive out to a property. I want to see it on a video, and I want to see pictures of it, and I want it all emailed to me. Because it takes an hour or so for me to drive to a property and drive back. Yeah. And I'd much rather in 5 minutes I can solve almost any problem if I just have pictures and video. So that's another thing is, you want somebody who really understands how to use the basics of computers. They don't need to be a computer genius, but they need to be able to use a smartphone, and they need to understand how to email. Excel, those types of things. Yeah. So that's definitely key. Referrals are another big thing in this. When hiring a manager, it's really key to talk to referrals. And I'm not just saying you call them and you ask them one question, but you call as many referrals as they'll give you, and you just ask them question after question. You want to know, okay, how long have you known that person? Okay, what's your relationship like with them? What other types of jobs have you seen them do? What do you feel their strengths are? Do you feel they have any weaknesses? And really, because the more questions that you ask someone, the more information they're going to start to give you and give you and give you. And sometimes they'll tell you things that you're not necessarily asking for, but are really important. So the more you can talk to each and every one of their referrals, that they're saying, hey, I know this person really well, or I worked for this person in the past, the more information you can get, the more confidence it'll give you. Not to mention, in the construction field, usually they've worked in other construction companies or things like that. So they're going to have some references. They might have pictures of their work. They might have subcontractors that they deal with. You could call the subcontractors that they say they deal with and ask them, hey, how is it to deal with this manager? Because the subcontractor gets the real view of what's going on with the manager. If the owner could never know that there's a problem over here because the subcontractor and the project manager are handling it, but the subcontractor may realize that, hey, I had to ask him 5 times for this one thing, and the owner never knows. The owner of the company doesn't know. Right. So that subcontractor can give you insight into how efficient and how good they are at managing and doing their job. So that's another good one for hiring a good manager. All right. Definitely.
Well, for those who haven't done this before, explain how that manager kind of fits in with, they're not a contractor, but they're kind of handling your subs. Because I think a lot of people aren't sure what a manager would be, in this construction
definitely.
scenario.
And a manager could be a contractor. You could actually hire someone who's a licensed contractor, which I've done. And that's definitely a plus. Or a manager is just, someone who's working for you. And basically what your manager is doing, I'd call them a project manager. So I'm talking about the people who just manage your projects, all of your rehab, your fix-ups on your properties, things like that. So they are managing all your subcontractors. You want them to set up all your orders and get all the materials handled and delivered, no matter how that's going. The project manager is going to walk all of the subcontractors through the property. He's going to write the scope of work for them. And then he's going to go back and he will go to the projects, you know, every couple days, depending on what period of work they're in, and he's going to check on them, and he's going to talk to the subcontractors and see how things are going. He's going to be always in constant communication with subcontractors who are on the job. He will schedule your next subcontractor that's coming up. So that's a real key to project management, is not only dealing with what's happening on the job, but having the next 2, 3, 4 subcontractors ready to go and keeping them informed. Because if one day one person falls behind, then it cascades and goes to every other person that's supposed to do work behind them.
Right.
So the project manager needs to manage all of that for you. And a good project manager will mean that you don't have to deal with it anymore. And that is the key. Now, the reason I say that is because how much money can you make being a project manager? A good project manager in a decent area maybe makes $25 an hour, you know, maybe more, but I don't typically pay anyone more than that.
Right.
So, but how much money do you make going out and finding the next deal? I mean, that could be $10,000, $20,000.
Right.
So being able to have a good manager who manages your projects and good systems, then that enables you to go out and find 1, 2, 3, 4 more deals, which could be worth, you know, $20,000, $30,000, $100,000, literally. And
then you wholesale them.
And then if you can't handle them, you wholesale the extra ones.
Right.
I mean, that's and then you're making a lot more money, and you're having to deal a lot less with the things that, to tell you the truth, project management can be very stressful. So that's a stressful part of the job. So you want to get it systemized and then push it off to the next person, a good manager, as soon as possible. Right.
So I think what you're saying, and people do look at jobs this way, is if you're doing the project management yourself, you're paying yourself $20 to $25 an hour, and that's really not the salary that you're looking for, right?
Exactly. If you're going to be a real estate investor, you definitely deserve to earn a lot more than $25 an hour. That's for sure. So if you're going into this profession or you're doing this, you deserve to make a heck of a lot more money. And that means you should not spend any time doing tasks that you can pay someone else to do well for less than what you deserve to make.
Right, because they don't know how to do the deals. If you're that stressed out from dealing with some of the subcontractors, you're not even going to have the energy to negotiate with homeowners, because that takes focus. You know?
Yeah, you have to be focused. You have to be able to relate to the person. You got to be able to sit down and talk with them. If your head's off over here and you're thinking about all the things that could go wrong or whatnot, that's just not a good way for you to go out and find the next deal.
Absolutely. Well, guys, if you see on the right, I posted a poll. So if you do see the poll, either in this one or during the replay, you know, you can go ahead and just fill in the poll. It's for us to get an idea of who watches the show and what kind of experience they have, so we can gauge our future speakers and the kind of training that we do towards our audience. So I don't think Broc can see the poll, but it says, how many deals have you done? Is it 0, so you're a newbie, or 1 to 3 wholesales, 1 to 3 rentals? And the last question is 4 to 6 wholesales or rentals. And then for those experienced guys who just came on to hear the tips and tricks that Broc's sharing, have you done 10 or more deals? So there's a little poll on the side, and you know, you can fill that out when you want to. I do have a couple more, one or two more questions for Broc, but I wanted to do this just before the end. And then if you're looking for ways to earn money and find the money for your next deal, I put in here, I do have an ebook on private lenders and how to find those private lenders. So if you do click on that link, it's here in the webinar, and you will get an ebook and also a 10-day email course where I walk you through the steps and encourage you to go through the steps in the book so that you actually can land your own private lenders. That book is also on my website. It's wisewealthuniversity.com PV for private, PV lending. So you can get the book there, and I will just leave that up for a few more minutes and get back to Broc. So I just thought that's kind of like my commercial there for the day. So Broc, thanks for sharing a lot of these tips, but what I'd like to ask you finally is, what advice would you give to someone when they're starting out right now? If you were starting out right now, what would you tell people to do?
Okay, if I was going back and starting out, my first thing would be treat it like a business from the start. So as I do each and every piece of every project, make a system for it. Also, wholesale deals. Learn to wholesale deals, develop a network of people who invest in properties that you can wholesale deals to. There's a lot of money to be made just wholesaling deals.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Third, don't be afraid to market yourself. I was a little afraid to, post all my stuff on Facebook and think that, oh, I'm bragging and gloating and whatnot. Post what you're doing on Facebook. Post it on the social media. Let people know what you do.
Yeah.
They're not going to come in and steal your business. There's plenty of houses out there. There's plenty of houses. So don't worry about that. But what will happen is people are going to see that you're really out there doing things. And then all of a sudden, lenders are going to come to you, people who want to invest with you. You're going to have people come to you and refer you deals. Mm-hmm. You'll have people come to you and say, hey, I want to sell my house. That's one thing I wish I would have done from the very beginning. I feel like that would have helped my business expand. What else would I suggest? I think those are three main keys if I were to go backwards in time. And probably the fourth. This one's good.
So systems, post on Facebook. What was the other one?
Systems, post on Facebook. What was the other one?
Checklist. Hire help.
Hire help.
Managing it. Yeah.
Okay. Definitely. Market yourself. Social media. Don't be afraid. Wholesaling. That was the third one. The fourth one is don't be a do-it-yourselfer.
DIY.
Do not be a DIY.
It's so easy to go and do that, when you've got talent, you just want to go do it yourself.
Exactly. And that was a hard thing for me because in the beginning I would do it and I would even help with the work. Don't be a do-it-yourselfer. Subcontract this stuff out. Yeah. Even if you're a contractor, do not do it all yourself. Maybe if you have one trade you're really good at, then your guys can do that trade, but hire subcontractors for every other trade. This is a key because I missed out on probably another couple $100,000 in the first year just sitting there doing too much work that was only worth, $15 to $30 an hour when I could have been finding 3, 4, 5, 6 more deals that I could have wholesaled. So don't be a do-it-yourselfer. That is so key. And I see so many newbies just fall into that trap because they're like, oh, I could save a little money doing this myself. But what you're doing when you save a little bit of money doing something yourself, you are costing yourself that next $10,000 or $20,000 paycheck from doing the next deal. And it's not worth the trade-off. Definitely not worth the trade-off.
Yeah. I mean, just go back to, if you were to hire someone to do that, what would you pay them? And if you're only going to pay them $10, $15 an hour, that's what you're making while you're spending your time. And I think people, especially homeowners, get caught up in that and they think, well, I can paint, I might as well just do the painting. And then they're just bogged down with all this work and they're not finding their next deal while they're doing that. So I think that's like excellent advice. So good. Anything else that you want to add in? Maybe kind of a final word of advice?
Okay. My final word of advice to everyone out there, it doesn't matter how much you know, it only matters how much you do. So get out there and take action. Go look at properties, go write offers, go join real estate investment groups, make
Uh-oh.
Janice, you there?
Yeah, it kind of jammed up for a minute.
It did.
Let me, oh, okay. I got you back on this one.
Okay, we're back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
So
froze.
basically, get out there and take action, because action takers make money.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter how much you know. You could read books and know everything about it, but if you never write an offer, you will never get a paycheck. That is my number one word of advice. My number two word of advice is find a mentor, find a coach to guide you and push you to take more action.
That's good too, because I know when I met you, you had someone coaching you, and you'd already probably gotten rid of the idea of do it yourself, because I think you did that at first on the condos. So by the time we did that first house, I know you weren't doing any of the do it yourself work, which is great.
No.
And I like what you said about take action, because I kind of learned that in that little group I had on auctions, because I would pay my assistant to make a list for everyone's zip code, and people would come to this little thing and I'd hand out the list, or they'd get emailed, and they were supposed to go search out the properties in their zip code and then come back and report, so we as a group could decide what we wanted to buy, you know, from the auction. And what I found was that they would come and have excuses, and they were realtors, they had experience, they'd flipped stuff before, but they just wouldn't get around to it, if you know what I mean. And so one thing I was impressed by you is you came and you had done the work, and then everyone would say, oh, I have to leave, it's traffic. I mean, it's not just wanting to do it, it's actually taking the action. And so after everyone would leave, you and I would go drive around and look at properties, because, you know, and I noticed that about you right off the bat is you wanted to get things done. And that's really the only way it's going to work. If you sort of analyze it to death, in this, there's so many things to think about in this business. If you analyze it to death, you are never going anywhere. So, you know, do that yourself, but also surround yourself by other people who are also going to take action, because that's how you get to move forward. And then when a deal comes up, you're ready, you're ready to take advantage of it. So I think that's, one of the great, little tips is, find the people at your local real estate meeting that you can work with. And I know you found lenders there, and you found contractors, and the title people are there. There's all sorts of people at those clubs that, can be part of the team that you build in your business. So I really like that. I always give people that advice. You got to get out to the club. Don't just sit at home and think about it. So, or read about it or something. So anyway, Broc, I want to thank you for coming on the show, and I'll give you guys a couple of other places to go for more information. So you can, if you want to register for other Hangouts, you can join me every Thursday night at 6 p.m. wisewealthuniversity.com/hangouts. And now all the recordings get posted up on the website. So if you register for Hangouts, you'll be given access to the whole list of previous Hangouts on a different page, where all those are listed, and they're on my blog. And then they're also on YouTube. So on Wise Wealth University on YouTube is a list of all the Hangouts. We've been doing them since October. So there's quite a library there of training, Q&As, as well as people we've interviewed. We did a series called Find, Fund, Fix, and Flip, where I went through those 4 items, since October, and then hit on the different things you need to be able to find, fund, fix, and flip a house. And we're continuing to do interviews and bring in experts that can help you do those particular things. And when we kind of finish up with those, I'll move into more of rentals, acquiring rentals, and how you deal with tenants and things like that. So if you want to see more of the Hangouts, go to wisewealthuniversity.com/hangouts. And you can also follow any updates I do on Twitter. So you can just follow me at the Pink Professor on Twitter. And then if you go to Google Plus or Facebook, I have a page called Wise Wealth University, not .com, but just Wise Wealth University. And you can see many of the different updates for the Hangouts, but as well as I share other information that can help you in your real estate business, because that's what we're here for, is to help you guys get started, because we were all struggling newbies once, and you kind of just have to surround yourself with the right people, get the education you need, and then take the steps you need to move forward. So again, I want to thank Broc for joining me tonight and taking an hour out of his evening and showing us all the tips and tricks to kind of streamline your business and make it a real business, and not just, I flipped a house last year, because you certainly aren't going to be in business long if you only do one every once in a while. So thank you, Broc, so much for coming. And I think if I had to say one last word for you, might be organization and efficiency. I think those are things you really are plugging here in telling people how to get started. Right?
Definitely. Thank you so much, Janice, for having me on. It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure for me too. Thanks so much. And we'll be talking again soon. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the poll. And if you want to get that, the ebook to develop your own private lenders, go to my website. We'll see you next Thursday night, same time, same place, 6 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.